Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to have Kristin Snowden. She did regular for years, and so I only get to see her now once every 2 months. So it's always a delight. So thanks for being here. What do you have for us today, Kristin?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. All right, I'm gonna get started. When betrayal happens, especially betrayal tied to sex, love, porn addiction, and other compulsive lying behaviors, it is devastating, paralyzing, and traumatizing. Yet those who've never experienced this kind of betrayal are only capable of comprehending the very surface elements at play. Outsiders will say things like, well, he or she lied and cheated, he's good or bad or sorry or will never do it again, forgive and move on, or, get out immediately. But the complex layers beyond these basic concepts remain elusive to most of your friends, family, and even professionals, which is why it's so important to attend events like this and really understand the complex crisis that's going on, the multi layers, and understand how it shows up in your life, your story, and learn the skills to heal and move through this. So, betrayal by an intimate partner is not just a relationship issue or broken trust. It is trauma. Your fear, your anger, your hurt are all valid. Your confusion and paralysis are valid. And it's important to understand the unique scars. It's important to understand the unique scars that are involved with betrayal trauma. My name is Kristin Snowden, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in helping both individuals and couples navigate these types of crises. Deep betrayals brought on by uncovering unknown addictions, long-term infidelities, chronic patterns of lying, sneaking around, and living a double life. And I've just noticed from my 15 or so years of doing this that there are unique elements that really need to be emphasized in this field. So when you go out to a therapist to seek help, or when therapists are helping people with these stories, they can understand some special nuances that seem to be existent in just this type of betrayal and trauma. So let's start with the basics. Betrayal by an intimate partner in the form of, again, lying, sneaking around, living a double life, chronic hidden patterns of pornography use, money being spent, long-term infidelity, seeking out paid sex, etc. It happens in many different forms. This is a betrayal that is by your primary attachment figure. This is the person that you are most exposed to and most vulnerable to in so many ways, physically, financially. You share children with them often. Plus, another issue about why betrayal trauma is so harmful is that this is a threat that's hidden within what's supposed to be the sanctity of this intimate, supposedly safe relationship. You are having daily interaction with your betrayer, with your perpetrator. And there is this huge secret or sets of secrets or an entire life of secrecy that is maintained for months or years or even decades behind your back. There's a secret world of your partner's acting out behaviors that has been existent while you've been busy trying to be a partner, maybe trying to work and rise up in the career field, raise your children. And those issues alone are extremely jarring. So it's not just an issue when you uncover this betrayal about a broken heart or broken trust. It is a broken sense of safety where everything in the world can feel so unsafe. The reality that you once lived in no longer exists. And you find yourself questioning your partner, your relationship, all other relationships, yourself, and the world in general. Betrayal doesn't just break a relationship, it fractures who you thought you were, what you thought your life was, how you thought you showed up in this world, and how other people show up in this world. and your sense again of reality. So I highlighted 7 elements that I think are unique scars to betrayal trauma. The first one is the deep attachment wound of the intimate partner betrayal. This is supposed to be your closest and safest human on the earth. Your home is supposed to be your safe space. Your partner is supposed to be your safe person. And obviously, upon hearing your partner's behaviors and the double life and learning that he or she is capable of doing these acts and coming home and lying to you every day is just earth shattering. And that is extremely unique to intimate partner betrayal. The second unique element is the fact that you have to live in close proximity to the person that has perpetrated you against you. So think about that and other elements of other traumatizing experiences. If you were in a toxic relationship or an unhealthy work setting, or even if you got in a really bad argument with another distant family member, it is common for your body to avoid the traumatic stimuli, to get away from the scary person, from the hurtful person, from the source of the pain that you've been exposed to. But because this is a harm caused by an intimate partner who is living in your space, definitely the days following uncovering the crisis, sometimes months and often years following uncovering the betrayal, you are living in close proximity to your perpetrator. That's extremely unique. And so I always beg and plead for professionals to understand that when betrayed partners and their cheating or betraying partner, your addict partner, come into couples therapy, the betrayed partner is going to be highly, highly dysregulated because they are being exposed every day in close proximity to the person that is most untrustworthy, that has harmed them the most, that scares them the most, that is the most uncertain thing on this earth. So of course, betrayed partners are going to be extremely dysregulated and constantly swing between, I want to do everything in my power to save this marriage, to who is this person? I hope they die. To, again, hoping for bad things to happen, to crying and begging for things to just go back to the way they used to be. This is expected, and this is a very unique element to betrayal trauma that I want everyone to understand. There's also, because this is an intimate partner where your lives are deeply intertwined, you might feel trapped because of financial needs, emotional needs, dependency needs based on raising a family, health needs, etc. There's a constant sense of unsafety, emotional dysregulation, fear, rage, hurt. And there's also a constant sense of emotional dissonance, of maybe even perhaps loving the person that has hurt you the most, and then kind of hating yourself for it sometimes, or feeling extremely pathetic or bad because it's just not so obvious that you didn't just grab your bags and run when you uncovered what was going on here. So that is a big, unique aspect to betrayal trauma. A third element that is a unique scar is the extremely personal nature of a sexual, emotional pornography type of betrayal. It's interesting to think about, but when someone uncovers maybe that their partner's alcoholism has gotten out of control, or they're gambling, or they're working too much, and you go into couples therapy, it's not that common that the immediate questions start being, well, how's your sex life? What kind of things fell apart in your relationship that might have led to your partner drinking more or gambling more or working more? But yet, oftentimes, because it's sexually acting out or seeking out attention or intensity or chaos with other people outside the relationship, it's so common for couples therapists to, in my opinion, erroneously start connecting it to a relationship problem. Because as you know, if you watched a lot of my webinars, it's about poor coping and seeking out, again, distraction, numbing out, intensity, to not have to deal with what's going on in someone's own personal state, to run away from the shame, run away from the pain. And yet it is so common because they were seeking out another human or sexual behavior that it ties into this very deeply personal knock against you. It's so often the addict and the betrayer is just kind of filling the gap with anything. It's anything and everything to stop feeling, to get out of their body. But yet it will feel like it is a direct shot against you, against who you are as a person, how you show up in the relationship. And often, to add insult to injury, as part of the addicts acting out um, defense mechanisms, they will sometimes come home and blame you. You know, they will put it on you if you didn't nag me so much, if you didn't want so much. And so there's a strong tendency in betrayal trauma to have people erroneously make it focused on a relationship issue, and it's just not that. Number 4, another unique scar is the element of gaslighting, manipulation, and chronic self-doubt that is involved in long-term betrayal trauma. Every addict, when they are acting out in order to preserve their acting out behavior, their favorite coping skill, their favorite escapism, and hiding it from you, because the real story is, if you really knew me, if you really knew what I was doing, no one would love me. And so they use all tools they have in the tool belt to keep you off the scent. And part of those behaviors include a lot of gaslighting. So a lot of, the addict telling you that your reality is not accurate, that you might be picking up on things, and I'm just going to tell you that you're crazy. I'm going to maybe manipulate you and start a fight so that I can feel justified to go out and act out in the way I want to and not feel as guilty anymore. And it leads to very common and strong senses of self-doubt by the betrayed partner, them questioning, you know, something that's really great is they might start to say, okay, you're lying about this, but then walk away from the argument where the addict is using a lot of gaslighting and manipulation and kind of say, well, maybe what's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? And not had any of their concerns dealt with or validated, and just walking away feeling like they have no instincts, they have no intuition, they can't trust themselves, they don't have the self-confidence to stand in what they want and be okay with it. There's no conflict resolution whatsoever. So it is unique to betrayal trauma to have high levels of gaslighting and manipulation where you feel like you can't trust yourself, you can't trust anyone else. And of course, there's a high level, usually by the addict and betrayer, where there's a lack of empathy and compassion too, an incapability of being able to validate your struggles, your pain, where you're coming from, and solving issues that are coming up in the relationship. A fifth unique scar to betrayal trauma, although this happens a lot for many traumas, is a deep sense of injustice, a deep sense of anger and resentment and cynicism that is tied into finding out that your intimate, trusted loved one is not the person you thought that they were. It's so common for us to kind of operate from this idea that, like, everybody follows the law. No one wakes up in the morning and wants to, like, destroy people's lives or break their vows or sleep with married men or women or break laws and do things that are ultimately going to harm other people. And then all of a sudden you find out what your partner's been doing for years and years with other people who are engaging in these unscrupulous behaviors. And you get a deep, deep sense of cynicism of everybody is untrustworthy. This world is dark and bad. I would say that there's three tidal waves of betrayal trauma. First comes the crisis where you find out that your partner did these things and you're in crisis mode trying to figure out what the best next steps are. And then you're in so much crisis that you're forgetting things and you're not sure how to move forward and you're paralyzed, and there's this deep sense of shame that like you can't function because you're in total crisis. And then the third wave um, that hits you is this deep sense of cynicism, pessimism, injustice of you're so angry and you're so hurt and you can't trust anybody because this betrayal bleeds into all relationships and makes you lack your ability to trust yourself and everybody else, that you lift your head up and you go, well, who am I now? Like now, gosh, if I felt unlovable before because my partner was acting out and doing these things, now I'm really angry and I'm really resentful. And who could love this now? Because this is so furious. And so there's just these three ways that you just get knocked down and over multiple times after uncovering your partner's betrayal. Um, Another part of the deep sense of injustice is that it makes you feel like love feels dangerous. Vulnerability is a stupid thing to do. Trust feels like self-betrayal. And these relationship crises and these relationship concepts and wounds will pour into friendships, family, work, etc. You'll constantly question people's motives. And are they telling the truth or are they trying to harm me? And you will kind of walk through life with this fear of when am I going to get blindsided again? When am I going to get knocked over again by horrible truths or uncovering complete unknown disasters? The sixth unique scar that betrayal trauma carries is this idea around carried or absorbed shame. I just did a video on that around carried shame to really help you understand that you've been living with an addict, and part of the addiction cycle is are these three concepts that the addict tends to hold subconsciously, which is no one can meet my needs, not even myself. And only this addiction, right? This acting out behavior, this alcohol, this workaholism, this constant pornography use, only this will meet my needs. And if anyone knew what I was doing, I would be unlovable. No one would want to be around me. These are core beliefs that whether the addict is aware of them or not, they are constantly operating in this world through these core beliefs. And it is really interesting to kind of step back and realize as they have these shame stories kind of seeping out of them unconsciously, you will almost pick it up by osmosis, right? You're living in an environment where your partner is full of secrecy and shame. They're living a double life, kind of switching off between not being present because they're fantasizing and seeking out intensity, and then hating themselves while they're doing it, and then trying to hide it from you and keep you off the scent, and then also trying to keep up this facade that everything's fine and try to engage in the marriage and the family and the workspace. And that lack of presence, that lack of integrity, that lack of being able to be a real partner to you as a real human, as one integrated full human, you will pick up on the shame, on the disconnectedness. And you may be internalizing similar stories because you're just in their presence. Marriage is a sham. People are liars and cheaters. Everyone's untrustworthy. The world is gross with bad people. Other stories because they're kind of putting it on you. If I were more attractive, if I was pretty enough, smart enough, if I didn't ask for so many needs to be met, if I didn't want so much intimacy and connection, or constantly talk about how something's missing in our relationship. Why are you gone all the time? And why do you get so angry? And I don't understand. Maybe I drove him or her to these acting out behaviors. Understanding this unique element of carried shame that is present when you live with and love an addict who's living this double life, it's really important to put a name to it and see how it's impacted your life. Then the seventh final element that is unique to betrayal trauma, in my opinion, and this is from working in this field for about 15 years now, is the general lack of understanding of sex, love, and porn addiction, and just the impact of what happens when an addict is acting out in these behaviors, how it impacts the betrayed partner. I feel like this, and I feel like Rob and I talked about this 15 years ago, so I can even imagine what the numbers would be now. But sex, love, and porn addiction is like where substance abuse addiction was 30, 40 years ago. And that the general public still isn't even really sure what it is. They kind of make fun of it. They make it sound like it's more like a discipline issue or an excuse. Instead of really embracing the trauma models and the medical models that are related to why people seek out these levels of insanity. I mean, years or decades of patterns of compulsive, obsessive behavior, even at the cost of their jobs, their mental health, their well-being, loss of everything. I feel like our culture understands the insanity of substance-induced addiction. You know, you ingest the chemicals and you have an addiction related to that, but don't quite have an appreciation for all the elements involved with process addictions, these behaviorally addictive type of addictions. And because of that, it really sells not just the betrayed partner short in that they'll go seek out help. And I get weekly email from betrayed partners who go out and seek help from therapists, or even the addict goes out and seeks help from therapists and couples therapists, and no one is assessing them. No one is asking how often they're watching pornography. What are they, when they are watching the pornography or acting, what are they not doing? Assessing for levels of, is this infidelity or is this a more protracted pattern of compulsive acting out behaviors? And there's different levels of recovery for that. A lot of people don't even understand what recovery looks like for addicts or for betrayed partners. There's also a ton of judgment. Why don't you just leave if the person's not going to get better, or just get over it and move on? There's so much re-traumatizing that occur by a general public that doesn't quite understand what addiction is, what betrayal trauma is, and the paths to healing. Which again is why I love sexandrelationshiphealing.com and why I'm so passionate about putting out these free resources, because I want you to be able to put a name to these traumas and get the help and support and get into these groups and resources that will actually help you heal instead of judge you and make you feel like you're a freak or wrong, or that everything's hopeless and you can't ever heal from any of this. So with that said, I have groups that are always available. I have betrayed partners groups. I'm going to be putting more out on the schedule in about a month. There's always, obviously, sexandrelationshiphealing.com and Seeking Integrity's resources. But now that you have the language for what's going on, I'd love for you to get the right help that you need to get through this. And that's it.
We have a lot of questions. So I'm not going to, but the last point you're talking about, the therapy trauma, like there's a general public who minimizes, and you tell your friends and they don't understand. And that's harsh. But the therapy trauma, like I hear multiple times a week, from people who have gone and looked for help and it was not helpful. But it is why we point people towards qualified professionals, and not just those that say they work with this, because lots of people can put that on their website, but if they lack the training, they lack the opportunity to do the assessment. They're not asking the right questions,
Right.
and that can add, extra trauma to each person and the relationship. It just, it cannot not just not be helpful. It can make things worse. So it is really key to having, qualified help. And lots of people email me, including people who have reached out to Kristin at TAMI@seekingintegrity.com, and tell me where you're located and if you're the betrayed or the person that's struggling with compulsive behaviors. And I'll do my best to help you find help. So with that, let's hit questions. Okay, so the first one is how to prevent or improve the fluctuations between being a compassionate and supportive partner to the betraying partner, and being resentful, angry, hurt when a memory or trigger comes up, how to improve these dysregulations. So that's the first part. And then it says, and the second part is, even if the betrayed partner leaves and works on healing, how do you prevent betraying partner from affecting the kids with his unhealthy coping mechanisms if he doesn't heal or recover? Great questions. And so let's start with the first one, the fluctuations.
So for the first one, I actually just released the previous webinar, which is managing triggers due to betrayal trauma. And I go through some tools to kind of get through triggering memories, triggering events, so that you can kind of service the here and now parts of you that are hurt and angry. Because from your story, you're saying your addict partner is trying to work towards healing. There's an element of accountability, but you're so angry, your body's so traumatized, and your addict partner sounds like they're still, trying to develop a sense of empathy, compassion. Um, so I would encourage you to look at that video. That might help you with some skills that are going to be more elaborate than me being able to answer right here and now. And then even if the betrayed partner leaves and works on healing, there's an understanding that it's going to be slow going. The development of empathy and compassion and being able to slow down and not act out of their anger or fear or shame and kind of go back to their old tactics of raging or blaming, are going to still be present. How to prevent them from impacting your kids. There are kids Al-Anon programs. That's always a place where they can come and talk about that. Um, I always say, I'm a parent of 3 kids, that parenting isn't about perfection. It's about going back and repairing when harm has been done, repairing the rupture. And so it's not your job to be repairing the rupture. It's his job, or in part, or the acting out addict partner's job, to go repair when there's been harm caused. And it's going to be part of his or her recovery program to kind of own when harm's been done, go back and say, hey, I lost my temper. It's not cool. If this continues to happen and there's a constant, you know, keg that's ready to blow up, then you need to maybe explore separation, or house separation, or the addict learning to kind of take minutes and step back. Those are some suggestions that I have.
So I put in the chat, and I'm going to put one more thing in the chat, but we had the Healthy Boundaries work group started yesterday, and Debbie McCrae is very good at helping identify boundaries. And yeah, there can be boundaries within the household. I'm just putting in the previously recorded webinars, lots of Kristin's on there. Debbie McCrae's are really good. The dysregulation, what you're talking about, there are things that you can do to regulate regardless of what, he's doing or not doing. And I'm using he and she, but and yeah, parenting is not like perfection. As Kristin said, what I have observed is when one parent is like, you are enough. And so, reminding the kids this, you're doing great. This is, we're working on things. I loved one couple shared that they were working on bettering themselves, so they weren't giving information, but we're working on bettering ourselves, and we're gonna, it's a work in progress. But yeah, there was, I put the link for the videos, including there is Dr. Stevie Hall and Lindsay Stanley did a very good one on therapeutic separation, and they have a workbook because otherwise it's like we're just separated. So having a plan, having qualified professionals that can help you navigate that, this is where, getting the help that you need at this point really makes such a difference, rather than floundering for months or years,
Mhm.
getting the right help. So
And I'll add while we're going to the next
please,
question is
yeah.
that I think one of the worst things that people can do is not name this kind of stuff, right? You've been traumatized because someone has not acknowledged your reality and has told you, oh, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So you, as the betrayed partner, and let's say emotionally higher functioning person in the family, name it. Do an age appropriate naming, but you can say, daddy or mommy is having a hard time with his or her feelings. Just when they yell like that, it's not okay. And put a name to the elephant in the room. That's, your partner is still struggling with emotional integrity, with emotional intelligence, um, and name it. So the kid has the words for it, for why they feel like this.
And we tell partners all the time, nothing you did or didn't do caused this. Same with the kids. Nothing you did, this is, this is not your bad and therefore. So, and it's hard, but you being the loving presence, the more you stay regulated, like I can't hone in on that enough. Working really hard on you staying regulated, that helps so much during this. And it's hard. I'm not lying. Okay, my husband is doing really good. 16 months, no slips, relapses, or urges, nothing. He acted out with people, no porn or other addictive behaviors. He has done a great deal of work on himself. We have arrived at the consensus that he was a serial cheater with a lot of entitlement and dysfunction from family of origin. His dad was abusive and his mother was a manipulative enabler. There was infidelity in the home by both parents. Even after they had their kids taken away by CPS, they refuse to change their behavior or perspective or discipline. As a result, my husband freezes if he feels attacked and also tends to engage in pleasing. While he is acknowledging them, he sometimes has trouble identifying them. How can he better identify these behaviors? And what strategies or tools would you suggest to untangle the distorted thinking and patterns that he grew up with?
I mean, it sounds like you've done your homework. So it
Yeah.
sounds like if you have the skill set, um, to notice it and point it out, and he's not defensive enough that he might be able to sit with it and hear it, that's always a possibility, right? It sounds like you're watching this play out, and if you can calmly kind of point out, wow, I've noticed you're freezing, you're dissociating, what's going on here? That's always a possibility. But what I say helps someone work through this stuff in vivo, in real life, is group work with other men who've suffered and struggled in a similar way, who have these similar stories. And they're going to have confrontations and avoidance of conflict and be called on it and really have to be challenged. And then another great thing is to take all this stuff, now that it's been 16 months, and bring it into a CSAT or a couples therapist who specializes in this type of recovery work. And this is a great place where you guys can sort that out. How can I come to you when I'm frustrated about X, Y, and Z? When I see you freeze, I see that I lose you. How can we talk about these things so that it can be a productive conversation? So that you don't take my struggles on as your shame and, oh, more evidence, I'm bad. She's never going to forgive me. We're never going to get over this. And instead, you can just hear that I'm having a hard time with you not showing up and helping with the parenting. These are all when things have stabilized and your partner is no longer relapsing and are beginning to start to commence to learn empathy and compassion. That is when you can go in and start working on these relationship dynamics, that maybe there wasn't healthy communication, there wasn't healthy ways of, all I hear is shame and bad, and so I can't even hear what you're really saying to me because I have so many defense mechanisms up that, like, it's not a productive exchange of information. Those things can get fixed in couples therapy.
Yeah, and inviting the qualified professional in would be great. Yeah, that would be the best. Also, having these conversations when you're not in that moment, like that's too late. So if you're able to have the conversation of, do you feel yourself starting to freeze? Is there something you could, I mean, co-regulation? Debbie McCrae just did a couples co-regulating webinar last Friday. Like, there's so many things you can do. Finding out what will work for the two of you in that moment, so that he can stay grounded and present and show up. But wow, great. Thank you for sharing this too, because it's like great progress that you're making, 16 months in, that's still, newer on the list, but it's still, you're making super good progress. I'm going to lower this hand a second. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is, what's a reasonable amount of time to take before making a decision about the relationship? For context, we're currently doing 12-step work in couples therapy.
I
I'm gonna
actually,
pull the
go ahead.
should you stay or go, though, because
Oh,
you
yeah,
you
my
you did such a great job with that one. I share that often.
thank you.
So
Thanks, Tammy. Um, I always ask you to check in with your nervous system to find out if there is a date or a time period or a framework that when you introduce it, you feel a little glimmer of relief. So it might be 6 months, which that sounds too soon for most people. It might be a year, it might be a year and a half, it might be 3 years. But it's this idea when a lot of people are in crisis and they come to me and they're like, I don't know how long I can hang in there. I hate this person. I can't imagine ever wanting to be with them again. But they are trying to work it out, and we do have young kids. Then I'll try to calm down the nervous system that feels has lost total context of like, how long am I going to feel so uncertain? How long am I going to live in this purgatory? And say, I'll usually start with 18 months. That's just kind of the number that I started with. And if the idea that if it's like, okay, if today started the counting clock, and you knew in 18 months, if you don't feel safer, you still feel the same way, you still feel so much hatred and anger, you don't think your partner's repaired enough, that 18 months is when you're going to give yourself a chance to file or to, and in fact, that doesn't even mean that. That just means maybe that like pack up and leave. In those 18 months, you can be doing postnuptial agreements, getting your finances in order. And these are all things that I always say your nervous system is unique like your fingerprint. What brings you calmness, serenity, a sense of safety is different than what brings me a sense of safety. So I always feel like your nervous system will give us a feedback about what is feeling safe to you. So we introduce things, I make suggestions about, okay, would this make you feel a little safer? Going to a lawyer and talking to them and finding out what your rights are, going to a financial person and finding out what your financial situation is. Those all, in the time period, those are all unique elements to you that might help you feel safer about should I stay, should I go, when.
So, like the fingerprints, I love that too. But I did put the should I stay or should I go, and it was a whole series. But it started with Kristen's. I have referred to it. It's got a huge number of views because she has Gottman's information of journal about the questions. Do I even like this person? You can kind of gauge where you are on the scale. Well, I'm 80% in, or I'm 20% in. Well, that's good information. And then Kristen had worked with Carolyn, who did the Betrayal podcast, season 4, and Carolyn also was a guest on our webinar, and that was, we could not record it, but she talked about working through did I leave too early, did I stay too long, and again, that is a personalized thing. And I think it's one of those, when your when I often see, like, my head is saying this but my heart is saying that. And I have watched partners that when they align either way, that then when their head and heart are aligned, then they've made that decision. And it's true for the addict partner too. The reality, though, is just getting rid of the relationship does not change there's still grief, there's still loss, there's still all of those things. So it isn't like, well, done, whew, I can move on. It's like that just is a shift in where things are for partners, for female partners. If there is I've been left, or I have one foot out the door. There is a moving on alone drop-in group. The focus on that is different. It is not focusing on, do we work on repairing the relationship? It's how do
Mhm.
I move forward? And that has, it includes, some who are widows as a result, and some have found out after, the person has died. But it's a different perspective, for a drop-in group that's on Thursday. So consider that one if it's the right fit. Okay, I uncovered yet another betrayal last night. Oh, I'm so sorry. Where my partner was visiting sex workers. Although we had tracking on our phones, he figured out ways of getting around the monitoring. He is early in his recovery, but dragged his feet about a few of the CSAT suggestions. I kicked him out of the house, would like to go no contact for an extended period of time, and wondered what that looks like, especially when there are times you will need to pick up items from the house, etc.
Well, I mean, you already had added those great resources about
Yes.
separation and creating kind of rules of engagement. If you do not have a couples therapist, then you might want to just kind of uh, jot down, you can only come at these days and times. Is someone filing for separation or not, or is this just for a period of time? We're going to be separated, but you can come on Sundays so we can talk about how we're moving forward, or, so these are all kind of, it's almost like going to a family law mediation where you sort out child custody and current managing of finances. It goes into logistical mode, right? It goes into days and times and what feels safe for you. It's helpful to have a CSAT do this with you because they do these structured separations. They have kind of, they know the right questions to ask to help you feel safe, and kind of write it all out. Maybe even invite your addict partner in so you guys can discuss what's going to work for you. So it's done with purpose and in like a therapeutic, helpful way rather than a more upsetting, stressful uncertainty, right? You remove your partner from the home because his or her presence is too triggering, upsetting, overwhelming, and you want to start moving down in life in a safer, more stable way. Well, only these really structured boundaries around him or her leaving is going to help with that. You can't kind of have them just leave willy-nilly and think that you're going to have stress relief because there's more uncertainty. Now there's more questioning about what he's doing and what you're doing and what you're supposed to be doing and what he's supposed to be doing. Are you still working on recovery? Are you not? Are you moving towards divorce? There's a lot of questions. So the more you can kind of structuralize that, I think the more relief you will actually receive from that kind of intervention.
And I did put the link, and there is a workbook that they created. Hallelujah, because it's helpful. Lots of people, just like Kristen said, leave without a plan. There's no, what are we looking for? If you have logistics, then the communication, at least for the interim, maybe we only commune about logistics. Like you need to do that, but you don't need, I'm so sorry, I'm doing what, like whatever. Like you can be very clear about, this is the, I will read a text once a day. I'm not going to respond. Getting support for you. I can't, like I hear CSATs for him. What support do you have for you? I'm glad you're here, but what support are you getting to, to
Mhm.
help you hold this space? So, and the third webinar in that series of Should I Stay or Should I Go was about mediation, and that is helpful too. We've got so many resources. If you need help finding them, email me, tell me what you're looking for, because I probably have it in where I can find it.
Yeah. And thanks for adding that. Yes, betrayed
Yeah.
partners. I have betrayed partners groups. Many other people have betrayed
Mm.
partners groups. Sex and relationship healing has great betrayed partner support. Please, please get that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because you extra, like you need it anyway, and extra when, this is hit again. So,
Absolutely.
I am really having issues with the fact that the only reason my husband was willing to change was after being discovered. He was comfortable living his life with all the secrecy and betrayal going on behind the scenes and not feeling the guilt or desperation to change, which really annoys me. I get it. We are 18 months after D-Day, and he was doing a lot of right things, but I still resent him and the comfortableness that he had betraying me for 25 years. If I hadn't confronted him, he'd still be acting out in secret. Changing now that he's seen caught feels less significant to me because he never had the desire to come clean without being confronted. I just don't know how to move past the feeling this way. Suggestions.
Well, not sure if this one's going to help you feel better, but I will tell you that I think it's almost 100% of addicts who come in, it's because they've been caught, not because they've come forward. And most of them, when they've been caught, there's still continued lying, avoidance, or what I always say is months or years of just consequence avoidance behavior, right? I'm going to do the things you want me to do just because I want to get back in the house, get back in your good graces, have you move forward and get over it. There's very little movement in what I call the soul changes, right? The deep inner understanding of why I did what I did, how my behaviors harmed me. And I let the pain of those two truths of what I did, how it was outside my levels of integrity on so many levels, and how my behaviors harmed you, the kids, our financial security, our legal security, all the above, how those two painful truths can change my soul to want to become a better person, to make different choices, to validate you and what you're going through. So a lot of people get caught, don't come clean. Um, and a lot of people don't even use being caught as a trigger to start becoming a better person and doing better. I'm only telling you that because I hope just knowing you're not alone and that your story is not the only version of that story. It's the most common version. So that part's painful. I don't think it's ever not going to be painful that your partner was capable of doing what he was doing for all those years behind your back, as you're saying, with comfort. Um, I feel like you should be at this time, though, starting to see the discomfort that he is now connecting with today while realizing, I mean, back when he was doing those behaviors, it's all done because there's compartmentalization, right? I could be these multiple different people. I can be this person that like loves my family and loves my life and then has this secret world, you know, the secret sexual basement going on. They're just two very different parts of me and they are not integrated. They are not intertwined. I work very hard to keep them separated. And recovery work is about integrating them both and you becoming one full entire person. And that is done with a lot of pain and discomfort. And so you should be seeing at this point that there is no comfort, that there is that he is upset and hurt by the pain that he's caused. Um, and so I'm curious, just more is that you're not seeing someone who is at the phase where they're in pain and having the pain of what they've done change their soul. That he might just still be in consequence avoidance. Tammy?
Yeah, this feels like understanding what addiction is and isn't, so there's a podcast, Sex Addiction 101, on Dr. Rob's Sex, Love, and Addiction. I mean, there's just some primary thing. Like, I hear you taking this personal. He should have wanted, I'm 100% with Kristen of like, this is compartmentalization. If he had been thinking of you, he couldn't have used his maladaptive coping mechanism. So understanding the nature of addiction. I put in the chat, no addict changes until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. I don't know people who, I didn't like until I had a really massive consequence. I couldn't change. I didn't know how, and I didn't know there were tools. So that's the shift. And yes, and then we did webinar on real recovery, I think March of this year. The 2 to 5 year window, that's if if we're doing the work that we need to do, we can change. But it's a process because we've been using these maladaptive coping mechanisms as our go-to because we didn't have, I always say I didn't get the owner's manual, when I was born. The 12 steps in recovery were gave me the tools to be able to use and people to show me how to use them so I could change, so it won't be like a switch flipping and whew, got this. It's the gradual and like, oh, starting to put pieces together. And Kristen mentioned earlier the group work. That is so critically important, to have that group work because that we can go practice these things in 12 step, that's less vulnerable than practicing with our partner. But that's where we learn, oh, that person is saying that. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Well, my situation, my relationship, like we start to have things that we can apply. We can pass our, I'm thinking about doing this, and our sponsor can go, you may want to do this because our best thinking, another 12-step thing, our best thinking got us into the 12-step program. So we need to learn to shift how we think and how we act, and it's a process. And I know it feels incredibly painful that, he wasn't thinking of you, but he wasn't thinking of you. I mean, he couldn't and
Right.
continue to do the things he was doing. And but now he's working on doing something different. So
Right. And again, it's not like non-addicts make these gravely bad decisions that harm so many people as often as addicts tend to. But I do always try to humanize the element of their behavior and choices. Is that, a lot of us don't go on a healthier eating diet or exercise more until the doctor says the blood work looks really bad and you need to change, or you're going to be diabetic, or you're going to have heart issues, or you don't tend to change behaviors or spending habits until there is a negative feedback that something's not working anymore. And so we all as humans don't tend to alter our path. We love complacency, even if our complacency is insanity, right? With the addictive cycle, it looks insane from the outsider looking in, but that is all still like their normal. And we don't tend to divert from what is our normal until there's major pain feedback loop systems saying this is not working anymore.
the next one, can you give an example of a positive story of a couple that that went through this porn and drug addiction time frame and work done to heal and improve the relationship? There's hundreds, like I can think of off the top of my head, but in the series that I put for Should I Say or Should I Go, the second one was a partner who stayed and a partner who left, and they share their story. So that's an easy one, and they unpack more of the story. But Maddie Corman was on a webinar, and she shared she has Accidentally Brave on HBO Max. I mean, so
Yes.
so yeah, and Kristen knows her too. So yeah, so there's so many stories. We wouldn't do this work if there wasn't
Yeah.
healing and real recovery 2 to 5 years if we're doing the work. But it's one day at a time. I mean, ultimately, it's one day at a time. But
Yeah.
thoughts, Kristen?
Well, it makes me think of that one video I did, signs that your partner is changing for the better.
Hmm.
So you might want to look at that because think it's not even just positive stories. We can just say, yes, we hear stories that when the S hits the fan, that's enough pain for the person to pivot and do better and learn better skills. And then the betrayed partner learns how to heal, and down the road, there's, two people who realize they now have a more intimate, connected relationship that was missing their entire life. Um, that's the most ideal story. But I think what you would benefit the most from is the elements that are present that cause that to happen. And I go over that in detail in that video, signs that my partner's changing for the better, which is these concepts of they show up to what happened with humbleness and surrender. They're willing to accept influence from professionals saying, this is what recovery looks like. You need to go to 12-step meetings, you need to find a sponsor, you need to shake hands, you need to, go to professionals, you need to start working the steps. hanging out with people who are in recovery and learning what they do to stay in recovery and then start doing it. Live a life in consultation. Learn this thing called empathy and compassion. Practice it, screw it up, repair it, do better next time. And then the betrayed partner really work on figuring out again what these unique scars are that they've been exposed to because of these traumatic experiences. Work really hard to manage their trauma symptoms because it's so hard. I mean, I tell betrayed partners, unfortunately, what has happened to you is not your fault. You did not sign up for it. But now that you have this multi-level traumatized body and life around you, it's now, for better or worse, become your responsibility to figure out how to navigate that in the best way possible. Mitigate your traumatized body with trauma evidence-based interventions and group work and educating yourself. So things like that. But that's what I feel like you're asking is we do hear positive stories, but I think it's more important to hear what the signs are and the path is to move into this more positive direction.
And then it's a process, like this, this didn't happen overnight, and like years and decades, so it's not going to be, oh, there's a magical poof, or and I hear some partners go, I want to go back to the way we were, and I'm like, I hear you, and I don't think you really want to, because this person was lying and compartmentalizing a whole secret life, so it felt better because this doesn't feel good, and I get it, so. Okay, the next one is, what are tips for the betrayed partner to lovingly detach when their ag partner is emotionally dysregulated and unloads their shame, guilt, etc. on the betrayed partner? Hugely
So
helpful question.
the
Yeah.
number, yeah, and it's understandable. The number one thing I'd say is you got to be in a group because it is going to be so confusing and you're going to have all this empathy and compassion for your partner who's so in shame and guilty and feels bad, but maybe that guilt and shame still isn't transforming him or her into a better human who is learning from his or her mistakes and is taking accountability. So there's just no recovery that's happening. You have to kind of lean back and away from that confusing environment and lean into a group of other betrayed partners or professionals who will kind of remind you what you need to feel safe, why you want to detach, why you were originally expressing the need or desire to detach, what is happening and not happening in your marriage or relationship that requires you to remove yourself from it. And it just takes a lot of repetition. Your brain is in crisis mode, so it's a lot of like, I just know in this moment I feel bad and don't want to go. And so you need a group of other people to help you set boundaries, remember the boundaries, hold the boundaries, remind you why you had the boundaries in the first place, support you while you deal with the pain and hurt around it. That's my suggestion.
So, and I've thrown some more stuff in the chat because that's what I do. So check those out. Thank you for the in-depth look at the impacts of betrayal addict partner here. And I still struggle with empathy, patience, and compassion sometimes. I lose sight of the impacts I've had that caught up my wife's reactions, which can trigger my own childhood wounding. I'm not trying to make excuses. I want to do better for my partner. I haven't created the consistency she needs. Is there a written list of these 7 things you discuss? I'm getting ready to post. The video will be posted later today, so you can review it again. But is that
Mhm.
list posted somewhere?
No, but it would make for a good blog post. So I guess
There you
stand
go.
by. I also post on my website, kristinsnowden.com. So my website has a ton of resources for everybody. But also a lot of my videos, as you can see on kristinsnowden.com, are about what happens in betrayal trauma. Again, for the addict, why his or her addict behaviors are so impactful to the partner, and you'll get plenty of information that way.
And on our, we have lots of different content, you know, like therapeutic separation, demystifying gaslighting. I mean, a ton. But the two people's webinars I point to the most on our website for partners are Kristin Snowden's and Debbie McRae's, because their tools are so practical for you using in a, like, I just need to know what can I hang on to, and you know, and it's like, do you want, you know, you listed 7 things. These are all good, but and focus on this one thing. One of the things you talked about too, I know we're running out of time, but you know, the element, the sense of injustice, and that no one can be trusted. And I was thinking how often, and I know you do too, you hear about the affair partner being someone that, you know, a friend, a family member, whatever. So there's that doubled, you know, impact of everyone really is untrusted. No one told me, you know, all of that. So this is complicated stuff, and be
Yeah.
kind to yourself, you know, during this. So can we do one more? Because this one is, I notice most women have
One
a
more,
lot of
yeah.
anger. Yeah. I don't feel angry, but just devastated, threatening and crying. I'm confused by the difference. What do you think?
I actually did a video on this. It was about it's numb and betrayed. And I talk about why there's some people who feel safe to step into anger and feel more powerful in that state of anger, and some who are not there and they feel very numbed out. So I get that question, and I devoted an entire video webinar. So I think you can go to Kristin Snowden and type in numb, angry, betrayed. I think that's what it's called, numb, angry, and betrayed, or something like that. And I go into depth with answering that question.
Thank you. And with that, I'm sorry we won't get to the rest of them. Come back again. Thank you, Kristen. As always, great information. Lots of resources in the chat. Check them out. This video will be posted later today, so you can review it again. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. If you had questions you didn't get to finish, you can try to send them to me and I'll do my best. But also Tammy is a great resource as well. Thank you for joining.
We do our best as a team. All right. Take care. Bye.